The cellophane wrapper crinkled in her hand, a sound as sharp and out of place as a gunshot in the quiet of our kitchen. I watched from the table, my coffee cooling in its mug, as she carefully arranged the bouquet in a tall glass vase. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the deep red of the roses, the delicate white of the lilies. They were beautiful. They were also the most painful thing I had ever seen. "Anniversaries are important, Alex," she said, her back to me as she snipped the end of a stem. "They're a time for remembrance, for honoring what was." Her name is Sarah. For 10 years, that name has been my home. But this morning, on the morning of our 10th wedding anniversary, she was filling our kitchen with flowers for another man. My chest felt tight, a hollow ache spreading beneath my ribs. I took a slow sip of coffee, but it tasted like ash. "I know they're important," I said, my voice strangely calm. "I had a reservation for us tonight, at that Italian place you love. I even got the suit you like back from the cleaners." She finally turned, a sad, gentle smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "That's sweet, honey, but you know I have my visit today. It's the one day of the year I can't miss. The visit, of course, the annual pilgrimage. For the last 3 years, ever since the accident that took him, our anniversary had been shared with a ghost. Mark, her first love, the one who got away, not by choice, but by a patch of black ice on a December road. I tried to be understanding. God, I tried. The first year I held her while she cried. The second year I gave her space. But this felt different. This felt like a replacement. "I could come with you," I offered, the words feeling desperate even as I said them. "I never got to meet him. Maybe it would help. We could go together, then have dinner after." Her smile tightened at the edges. "Alex, no. That's my private time. It wouldn't be right for either of us." She turned back to the flowers, her fingers tracing the petal of a rose. "These will look nice on his stone. He always loved red roses. And I hate them," I wanted to scream. "I hate the sight of them because they remind me that a part of her heart is buried 6 feet under with him." But I didn't. I just nodded, the motion stiff. "Right? Of course." If you've ever felt this kind of pain, the quiet, simmering agony of being second place in your own marriage, you'll relate. It's a special kind of hell. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the tile. "I should get to work." "Don't be late for dinner," she said, still not looking at me. "I'll be back by 6. I just walked out, grabbing my keys from the bowl by the door. The drive to my architecture firm was a blur of green lights and seething thoughts. 10 years. A decade of building a life with this woman. I remembered our first anniversary, a cheap weekend trip to a bed and breakfast, laughing because the shower only had cold water. I remembered the 5th, when we just bought this house, and we'd celebrated with a pizza on the floor, dreaming of the future. Our future. When did his ghost move in? When did our home become a mausoleum for her past? I spent the day staring at blueprints, the lines and angles making no sense. My partner, Ben, poked his head in around noon. "You look like hell, Alex. Anniversary jitters." "You could say that," I muttered, not looking up. "Heading out early?" he asked. "Yeah, got to pick something up." The lie came easily. The truth was too humiliating. I left the office at 3, the reservation card for the restaurant burning a hole in my wallet. But I didn't drive home. A dark, ugly curiosity had taken root in my mind. The cemetery. I had to see it. I had to see her there with his flowers. The Willow Creek Cemetery was on the outskirts of town, an old, peaceful place with ancient oaks and weathered headstones. I parked my car a block away, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was insane. This was the kind of thing jealous, paranoid husbands did in bad movies. But I couldn't stop myself. I needed to see the proof, to confront the reality of where her heart truly was on this day that was supposed to be ours. I moved through the rows of the dead, my footsteps silent on the soft grass. I knew the section. I'd looked it up once, in a moment of similar weakness. The newer section, near the weeping willow. And then I saw her. She was kneeling, her back to me, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sun. And in front of her, On the sleek, black granite of Mark's headstone was the vase. Our vase, filled with the red roses and white lilies. A sob ripped through the quiet air. It was her. Her shoulders were shaking. My anger faltered, replaced by a gut-wrenching pang of sympathy. She was in pain. My wife was in pain. I took a step forward, about to call out her name, to go to her, to finally be the shoulder she needed. But then she spoke, her voice choked but clear. "I'm so sorry, my love. I'm so sorry I have to do this." I froze, ducking behind the thick trunk of an oak tree. "My love, I brought you your favorites," she whispered, her hand resting on the cold stone. "Just like I promised. Every year. I'll never forget you. I'll never stop loving you." Each word was a shard of glass in my heart. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against the rough bark. This was it. The confirmation. She was here, on our anniversary, confessing her eternal love to a ghost. Tell me in the comments, what would you do in his place? Would you confront her? Would you walk away? I was about to turn and leave, to let the pieces of my life shatter quietly, when her voice came again, lower, more frantic. "It's getting harder, Mark. He's getting more suspicious. Alex, he wanted to come today. I can't let that happen. He can't know. He can never know." My blood ran cold. He can never know. Know what? That she still loved him? I already knew that. But the way she said it, it was laced with fear, with secrecy. This wasn't just about grief. This was about something else. "I have to go," she said, her voice trembling. "I have to pretend. For both of us. I'll be back next year. Promise. I love you. I'll always love you." She stood up, brushing the grass from her knees. I pressed myself flat against the tree. My breath held. I watched her walk away, her figure growing smaller until she disappeared down the path. The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. I stayed there for a long time, staring at those damned flowers. The first twist of the knife. It wasn't just love she was leaving here. It was an apology. A secret. I drove home in a daze. The house was empty when I arrived. I went straight to her office, a small sunlit room she used for her freelance graphic design. My hands were shaking. "He can never know." The words echoed in my skull. I started with her desk drawers. Pencils, paperclips, old sketches. Nothing. I opened her filing cabinet. Tax returns, utility bills, client contracts. Then I saw it, tucked behind a stack of old portfolios. A small, fireproof lockbox. I'd seen it before, years ago. She'd said it was for her grandmother's jewelry. I picked it up. It was heavy. Too heavy for just jewelry. I didn't know the combination. I tried her birthday. My birthday. Our anniversary. Nothing. In a fit of frustration, I tried Mark's birthday. I'd seen it on the headstone. December 14th. 12 to 14. The latch clicked open. My hands were slick with sweat. I lifted the lid. There was no jewelry inside. On top was a bundle of letters, tied with a faded ribbon. Beneath them, a stack of bank statements and a single, small, black velvet box. I picked up the letters first. The paper was old, the handwriting a masculine scrawl I didn't recognize. "Mark." I unfolded the first one. It was dated a week before he died. "My dearest Sarah, the days without you are endless. This deployment feels like a lifetime. I'm counting the seconds until I'm back in your arms. We'll get that little house with the porch swing just like we talked about. Wait for me. Always, Mark." My vision blurred. This was the past. This was the ghost. I was violating it, but I couldn't stop. I reached for the bank statements. They were for an account I'd never seen under her name. The transactions were regular, monthly deposits from a company called Evergreen Trust, and monthly withdrawals always in cash. The balance was substantial, over $80,000. What was this? Where was this money coming from? And why was she hiding it? My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I reached for the small velvet box. I already knew with a sickening certainty what was inside. I opened it. There, nestled in the dark velvet, was a ring. A man's wedding band. It was simple platinum. And engraved on the inside were the words, Always M. It wasn't her ring. It was his. She had kept his wedding ring. The finality of it crushed me. This wasn't a memento. This was a symbol of a vow that, in her heart, had never been broken. I heard the front door open. Alex? I'm home. I snapped the lockbox shut, shoving it back into its hiding place just as she appeared in the doorway. She was smiling, her eyes clear, the grief from the cemetery completely erased. She was pretending, just like she said she would. You'll never guess who I ran into at the store, she chirped, walking over to kiss my cheek. Her lips were cold. Mrs. Henderson. She asked about you. I couldn't speak. I just looked at her, at this beautiful, familiar stranger who shared my bed and my name, but whose heart belonged to a dead man and a locked box full of secrets. Are you okay, honey? She asked, her brow furrowing with what looked like genuine concern. You seem pale. I'm fine, I managed to croak out. Just a long day. The second major twist was taking shape, and it was far worse than simple heartbreak. This was about money. This was about a life she was living in the shadows. We went through the motions of dinner. I'd canceled the reservation, claiming a work emergency. We ate leftover pasta in silence. The flowers were gone from the kitchen. She'd left them all at the cemetery. For him, that night, I lay beside her in bed, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. I was an island of rage and hurt in the sea of our king-sized mattress. The next morning, I called in sick. The moment she left to meet a client, I was back in her office. I booted up her computer. I tried every password I could think of, finally breaking in with the name of her childhood dog. I searched for Evergreen Trust. It wasn't a bank. It was a life insurance company. The pieces, the ugly, horrifying pieces, began to snap together. Mark's life insurance. She was the beneficiary. She'd been receiving monthly payments for years, and she'd been hiding it from me. All of it. The money, the ring, the true depth of her connection. Our entire marriage, our shared finances, our life. It was all built on a foundation of this hidden fortune. Was I just her cover? A stable, reliable husband to hide the fact that she was a wealthy widow, forever tied to a ghost? I spent the next week like a ghost myself, haunting my own life. I hired a private investigator. His name was Dale, a grizzled man with a no-nonsense attitude. I gave him Mark's name, the date of the accident. I need to know everything, I told him. About the accident. About the insurance policy. Everything. It'll cost you, he said. I don't care. A few days later, Dale called. I got the police report on the Mark Evans accident. Single vehicle, black ice, wrapped his car around a tree. Death was instantaneous, open and shut. My heart sank. So it was true. It was all just her fixation. Wait, Dale said. There is one thing. A witness. A truck driver who was on the opposite side of the road. His statement was brief, said he saw the car swerve. But he mentioned something the initial report barely noted. He said the car's brake lights never came on. Not once. A cold dread, deeper than any I had felt before, began to creep up my spine. What does that mean? Could mean nothing. Malfunction. Could mean the driver never hit the brakes. Maybe he was distracted. Or maybe. Dale let the word hang in the air. I'll dig deeper. On the insurance, it's a big one. $2 million payout. Structured in monthly payments over 20 years. Beneficiary? Sarah Miller. Miller. Her maiden name. She'd never changed it on the policy. She'd kept that part of her life separate from me. From the very beginning. Who was the policy holder? I asked, my mouth dry. That's the interesting part, Dale said. The policy was taken out just 3 months before the accident. By the deceased himself. Standard practice, really. But the premium was huge. For a guy his age, working as a mechanic, it was a significant chunk of his income. Almost as if he knew he needed a lot of coverage. Fast. Stay till the end because what happens next will shock you. The final twist was assembling itself in my mind. A monstrous picture I didn't want to see. The hurried policy. The witness who saw no brake lights. The monthly payments she hid. Her annual secretive visits. Her whispered apology. I'm so sorry I have to do this. Oh God, it wasn't an accident. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, doubling me over in my chair. The air was gone from the room. It wasn't an accident. And she knew. She knew. Her visits weren't about mourning a lost love. They were about placating a guilty conscience. They were about honoring her partner in crime. My sweet, grieving wife, and her dead fiancé. Had they planned it together? A fake accident for the insurance money? Did something go wrong? Did he actually die? Or was the man in that grave even Mark at all? The questions swarmed, toxic and terrifying. I had to know. I had to see. I waited a week. The anniversary was a month past now. The wound festering, not healing. I told Sarah I was going on a business trip for 2 days. I packed a bag, but I drove to a motel on the other side of town. And that night, under the cover of a moonless sky, I went back to Willow Creek Cemetery. I brought a small, collapsible shovel. This was insane. This was criminal. But I was past reason. The man I was a year ago would have been horrified. The man I was now was just desperate for the truth. The cemetery was silent and still. I found his grave again. Mark Evans, beloved son and fiancé. I stood there for a long moment, the shovel heavy in my hand. I'm sorry, I whispered to the night, to the man who might be a victim, or might be a ghost, or might be something else entirely. And then I started to dig. The earth was soft, recently disturbed. It made the work easier, which only fueled my horrifying theory. I dug like a man possessed, sweat pouring down my face, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The tip of my shovel finally hit wood with a dull thud. Not a full-sized casket, a burial vault, but it was too shallow. Far too shallow for a regular burial. I cleared the dirt away from the lid with my hands. My heart was trying to beat its way out of my chest. I used the edge of the shovel to pry the lid open. It was heavy, but it shifted with a groan. I pulled out my phone, turning on the flashlight. I shone it down into the vault. There was no body. There was no casket. The vault was filled with sealed, waterproof bags. I reached down and pulled one out. I tore it open. It was full of $100 bills. Another bag contained passports. 2 of them. One for Mark Evans. One for a man named Daniel Price. The photos were the same. A man with dark hair and a confident smile. Mark. But the Daniel Price passport was newer. There were stacks of stock certificates, bonds, and a deed to a property in a town in Costa Rica. Property under the name Daniel Price. At the very bottom of the vault was a single, sealed envelope. My hands trembling so hard I could barely function, I ripped it open. It was a letter, in Sarah's handwriting. My dearest Mark, if you are reading this, then our plan worked perfectly. By now, you are Daniel, living a life of sun and freedom. And I am here, playing the grieving widow, collecting the checks that will fund our future. It's harder than I thought, living with Alex. He's a good man, which makes it difficult. But every time I feel a pang of guilt, I think of you waiting for me. I think of our life together, the one we truly deserve. Just a few more years of this charade. I'll come to you on our anniversary, my love. Not his, ours. Wait for me. Always your Sarah. The world tilted on its axis. I dropped the letter, stumbling back from the grave I had just desecrated. It was all a lie. A magnificent, cruel, calculated lie. The accident. The grief. Our marriage. All of it. I wasn't the second choice. I was the mark. I was the dupe. The steady, reliable husband providing her with a perfect alibi while she funneled her dead fiancé's insurance money into their escape fund. The flowers weren't for a dead man. They were a signal to a living one. A yearly reminder of their pact. The love I thought we had was a script. The tears were performances. The last 10 years of my life were a fiction, written by her and her partner, a ghost who was sunning himself on a beach somewhere. I didn't know how long I stood there, surrounded by the money and the evidence of my own monumental foolishness. Rage, cold and absolute, washed over me, cleansing the heartbreak, burning away the regret. This was no longer about a broken heart. This was about justice. I carefully placed everything back into the vault, except for the letter and one of the passports. I sealed the lid and covered the grave, leaving no trace of my visit. I had my proof. I had my revenge. The next day, I went to the police. I showed them the letter, the passport. I told them everything. It took weeks, but with my evidence, they exhumed the grave officially. The story exploded. The grieving widow and the ghost fiancé. It was a media sensation. They caught Mark, aka Daniel, trying to board a flight to Buenos Aires. He confessed quickly, implicating Sarah. The life insurance fraud, the conspiracy, the mail fraud, the charges were a mile long. I filed for divorce. It was the easiest legal document I've ever signed. The day the divorce was finalized, I went to the Italian restaurant, the one I'd booked for our anniversary. I sat at a table for one. I ordered the most expensive wine on the list, and I drank a toast to the death of a ghost, and to the birth of my new life, free from lies. If this story touched you, if you felt that shock, that anger, that need for justice right along with me, then hit subscribe and don't miss the next heartbreak that will leave you speechless. Because sometimes the most dangerous ghosts aren't the ones in the ground. They are the ones sharing your bed, holding your hand, and planning your destruction with a smile.